Now let's turn to Representative Abigail Spanberger. She's a Democrat from the state of Virginia. She's also a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and she is a former CIA officer. Congresswoman Spanberger, thank you very much for joining us. As you think about the president's remarks tonight, and you know what is going on in Ukraine, halfway around the world, how do you think that factors into what the president needs to say tonight?
Well, the president needs to speak firmly and aggressively about the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And certainly we have seen over the past few weeks, as Russia was making movements towards its invasion, the president and the Biden administration had made extraordinary strides in bringing together our European partners and partners throughout the world and security partners to be unified in ultimately the opposition to this invasion, unified in our response in terms of sanctions and aggressive tactics in the face of this invasion. And I hope that he'll continue to demonstrate that leadership, speaking up for Ukrainians, speaking up for the democracy that they are defending on the ground, and vehemently making clear that the invasion that Vladimir Putin has led is an affront to all of our democratic values here at home, certainly in Ukraine and throughout the rest of the world.
And Congresswoman, I see you wearing the colors of the Ukrainian flag, the blue and the yellow. What inspired you to do that? And as a former CIA officer, someone who's looked at not only national security, but what the United States and freedom represents around the world, how do you see what's going on in Ukraine right now?
Well, Judy, I was living in Germany at the time that our country was attacked on 9/11. And in the days after, I had a meeting with some German local elected officials, and one of the women arrived at the meeting wearing red, white, and blue. And I remember at the time being so grateful that she had taken the step, an effort to try and demonstrate solidarity for the pain that the United States was feeling. And so today, when we have such a platform to demonstrate our support for the Ukrainian people, it's a little bit of my effort to sort of pay it forward and make sure that, everyone who's fighting for their freedom on the ground in Ukraine knows that we're there with them. Because really what we are looking at is an attack on a democratic nation, on a sovereign country within Europe. We are seeing just horrible atrocities, the murder of children, attack on buildings and public spaces, and we're seeing extraordinary bravery and leadership from our allies in Ukraine. And so my hope and expectation is that tonight, when the president speaks forcefully denouncing Putin, his crony oligarch friends, and every person who has enabled him, that we, members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, will be united in our support for his comments, in support of democracy, Ukraine and every other democracy, including our own, and that we will be united in our denunciation and in the coming weeks, further actions against Russia and those who have enabled this invasion.
And Congresswoman Spanberger, we know this speech comes at a time of difficulty in the Biden presidency, coming off of a year of the pandemic, rising inflation. The economy has been hit. Criticism of the president last year over Afghanistan, but now dealing with Ukraine. Do you think that this is a moment when the president can recenter, reposition, redirect his presidency?
I think this is an opportunity for us to come together and recognize the leadership that the president has already demonstrated on the world stage. I think certainly as somebody, you mentioned that I'm a former CIA officer, I worked overseas in the national security space, and certainly there has been no time in recent years or perhaps ever where so many allies have been united, not just in words in support of Ukraine and in denouncing Russia, but actually united in taking meaningful steps, strategic steps to thwart Russia's efforts. And that level of leadership, I think, is admirable. It's important. It certainly demonstrates, as a proud American, the role of leadership that I think that we should always be presenting on the world stage. And here at home, we have faced challenges. We have faced challenges with inflation and the price at the pump and the cost of prescription drugs. And my hope is that in tonight's speech, the president will demonstrate leadership, confronting these challenges head on, acknowledging the pain that they cause Americans, but also creating a path towards a brighter future. We, as an American people, are always on that path towards an ever brighter, ever more prosperous future, and I hope that that's kind of the vision for our nation, our proud, proud country that he lays out.
Your voice has been one, Congresswoman, that has at times pointed out the president seemed to be tilting too far to the left, frankly, in his policies. Is it your sense that that this is a moment when there could, to repeat what I said a moment ago, could be a redirection? Or what are your expectations for the coming year?
So I think it's not so much an issue of left or right. It's an issue of moving things across the finish line, and that means, in the halls of Congress, getting a bill through the House, the Senate, and to the president's desk. I believe that the American people elected Joe Biden. Certainly in my district, people wanted to see a return to a normal future, some sense of stability. And that comes with legislating, getting bills across the finish line to the president's desk. We've seen extraordinary legislative accomplishments in our passage of the American Rescue Plan, in our passage of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as many other pieces of legislation that may not have captivated the headlines nearly as much. And so I think that when the president tonight in his speech, and certainly every member of Congress, I hope that we are all focusing on policy that will make meaningful impact in the lives of the people we represent, and that meaningful impact comes when we actually pass bills into law. That's our job here, and certainly we can advocate day in and day out for the priorities and the policies we want to pursue, but our goal and our measure of success is getting them across the finish line. And tonight I have a constituent who will be the guest of the First Lady, Joshua Davis, recently turned 13 years old. He's a young man with diabetes who has done advocacy in my district. And I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to introduce him to the President of the United States when President Biden came to my district, and to now recognize that he'll be bringing a voice to people who are facing diabetes across the country, and bringing a voice and a face and a story to the reality of what the cost of prescription drugs means for families across Virginia, across my district, and across the country. That's the sort of story that I hope the president will uplift, and then ultimately we will work hard to get legislation that will change people's lives, that will impact people like Joshua Davis and his family in Virginia and across the country, get those bills to the president's desk so they can actually become law.
We did see that Joshua was going to be one of the guests of the First Lady tonight. We'll be looking for him. Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.